I'm Jeff. I'm going to work on this painting that we looked at in the last video, where we were looking at the initial architecture of the painting and just the basic setup. And as I mentioned, I don't usually like to use blue tape, but I've done it for you so you can see it really easily. And the reason for that is because I don't want that color contrast in there and conflicting with the way I'm seeing the whole painting and the colors that I'm going to use on this first base layer. I'm going to use black and white today, but I never use black, just pure black. It's an Impressionist trick to always mix in some color with black. That way the light doesn't just deaden when it hits the black. It's got a little room to bounce around in that layer. So I start with the black because it's the highest contrast between the relative brightness of the canvas color. And I'll go around and I'll start to make some initial marks. And I'll kind of try to go around the whole painting so I feel like I'm working the whole composition all at once, rather than just focusing in on one area and then later trying to balance up further. And I'll follow some of the lines, but I'll leave other parts empty, and maybe we'll look at those when we do white. In other areas, I'll just fill in completely because I want to. And I won't always just follow straight along with the lines. Sometimes I'll go against them, perpendicular to them. But they're all still going to be there once we take the tape off. You know, maybe this corner down here needs to be here to balance that corner up there. I don't know. We'll see in a bit. These intersections are super important. Those are places that the eye will come back to and I'll refer to when I'm building shapes on top of them in subsequent layers. The crown jewel of the University of Iowa art collection, in my opinion, is Jackson Pollock's Guggenheim mural. I feel like I've got a really personal connection to it. When I was an undergrad there, I used to sit in the museum a few times a week and do homework when I did homework. And I would just sit under this painting, so I feel like I really, really know it. And I think it's his most successful work because there's places within the rhythm for the eye to rest. And you compare it to a work like his Autumn Rhythm, and the whole thing is just this rhythmic flow over and over, and there's no places where the eye pauses for a few seconds. So I don't feel like it holds the same interest as a work like the Guggenheim mural. So I've got this nice contrast between what's going to be a sharp edge and what's going to be a brushy edge. And then also the corner of this intersection will be defined by this wedge that'll be created there. I don't want to over-complete this intersection by filling in all of the corners because I want that closure to take place in the viewer's eye and mind. So from here, where I've got this black, I might then come down here so that this edge will be right here on the tape, and it'll be on this side on the tape here, but it'll be implying continuous in your mind up to here. And because this corner is right here, we'll understand that these intersections are there, even though they're not explicit. Same thing up here. I'm starting to approach this line, but I'm not touching it, while this one here does interact with the line. So I usually use a really high contrast color on this first layer, and then a lot of times I'll use white as well. So we're working in this relatively neutral space with the three colors here, which are going to be black, the canvas tan, and white. So I've got, in this case, by using black and white, I've got a full range of contrast set up right away. And that really helps activate the dynamism of the thing from the early stage. Because this canvas is unprimed, there's no gesso on it, this first layer of paint will soak into the fibers and basically stain the fabric, and so really become a part of the fabric. And I like that idea again of reinforcing the objectness of the painting. And there's artists who worked with this exclusively, like Morris Louis in his Veil series of paintings. They were all just thin, watered down layers of paint. It wasn't watered down, it was using mineral spirits with that sort of paint. But the whole thing just ended up being a stain painting. Same with Sam Francis. Some of his monumental watercolor works where the watercolor just stained into the paper or the canvas and became a part of it. I like that for my initial stages, but as the layers build up, I like to get a lot of texture in. So not only am I reinforcing the actuality of the canvas, but also the material actuality of the paint itself. See, I'm avoiding this right here, and the brain ought to fill that in. It's always good to have a massive palette knife. Actually, not just being flippant, it keeps you from getting too bogged down in one area in the initial stage. So you kind of have to think big right from the start. And I like that. It's in keeping with setting up the initial architecture of everything without getting bogged down into details yet, which is something that I get into later when I'm on later stages. So here I've got this white here. It's going to show this line. And this white here, that's going to show this line. I'm going to go in between them and get the top of the line only in between them. I've got both of these corners open. And both of them open up here. So I think I want to define one. I'll bring this over. We've got a lot of vertical linear stuff here. I think we need to maybe get a horizontal element in. Can even get some shape making going here. Some echo of corners happening. A lot of vertical happening up here. Bring this over. A lot of vertical happening here too. Here's a little bit of negative space right here that will kind of fill out as positive space in our minds. Maybe it'll refer to the line down here. It's about the same width as the masking. I think this is as far as I want to go on this stage. I want to leave a lot of the canvas exposed so that when I'm working the later layers, there's areas that can pop out and be the natural surface. So I've got a lot to work with here, and we can see those initial structures left for the whole chassis that's going to hold all of the layers above. And here are some of those corner intersection areas that I'll be conscious of when I'm working further. This is a big one right here that I'll constantly reconnect with when I'm doing the layers on top. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the shapes I make and why.